Hello, good people. Todd Shannon, data scientist, social commentator, getter of buckets. I'm sorry it's been so long. You know, this little song and dance where I come on and I neglect you, neglect my faithful subscribers, all tens of you, and then apologize for being away for so long. It's getting old. I know. What I need to do is just buckle down and make sure I'm consistent uploading videos. But hey, I didn't want to act like everything was status quo. Obviously, it's not. It's been a while. It's been almost one of my friends and who's also a subscriber of mine told me that it's been maybe 2 months. I don't know if that's true, but it's knocking on the door of a couple months, and I'm trying to get my audio here right. Maybe I should have did that before I started the video. But anyway, I had to do a video. I had to do a video in honor of the like one other Christian YouTuber likes to call them the OGTV. That's code, if you know what I'm saying. The OGTV month where they celebrate, what is it, Pride? You know what I'm talking about. I wanted to do this video before Pride Month was was over because there is actually something that I think most people haven't thought about with respect to the what they would call progress in gaining acceptance in the broader culture, right? So I'm going to say that with respect to progress, there have, on the surface at least, they've made a lot of progress, and there's been a lot of, here's the word that they like to use, affirmation. Affirm, affirm, affirm. This has been the goal of the OGTV community from the very beginning. I got to give a shout out to Ruslan for coming up with the OGTV. I'll see if it works. But I got some smoke for Ruslan in another video, so I'm giving him props on the one hand, but I got some smoke for you later. But anyway, that's beside the point. Here's the interesting thing about the progress, I'll put that in scare quotes, the OGTV community has achieved in the last, say, I don't know, what do you want to call it, 30 years? When did they start this campaign to normalize and to get people to celebrate the OGTV lifestyle, right? I don't know. I don't know exactly when it started, but I do know this, that now everyone must bow the knee. Everyone must kowtow. Everyone must say how great and how amazing the OGTV community is, the Transformers, all of the, the femboys, however you want to call it, right? They want everyone to adore them and to say that the OGTV relationships and activity is just normal and it's just the same as everyone else. And to some extent, they have achieved that goal. But there's an interesting shift that's happening now that I don't think anyone probably could have anticipated. But if you understand human behavior and just basic incentives, then this would have been obvious that this was coming if, assuming that they got to the point that they're at, which they obviously are. And it goes a little something like this. You see, right now, all of the social incentives are going in one direction. And that is to say that if you celebrate the OGTV community, then people will reward you socially. In other words, all of the social benefits accrue to those who affirm. On the other hand, all of the penalties accrue to those who do not affirm. Now, if you understand anything about incentives, if you want more of something, you reward it, and if you want less of something, you penalize it. So here's the conundrum here. Here's the kind of the irony of this whole scenario that they have kind of created. Now, there are real consequences to not affirming. It's not just social anymore. It could be professional. It could be physical. I mean, some people are actually being physically harmed. You look at Riley Gaines, who was a person who was outspoken against the Transformer community and participating in sports made for the ladies, and They literally intimidated her until she was locked into an enclosed room for like 3 hours, threatening her with violence. Like, there are real consequences out here in these streets. It's real out here in these streets, as they say. So it's not just that it's social incentives. There are all kinds of other incentives or disincentives, if you will, for not affirming. Okay, so here's the great irony, and it has actually an interesting cross section with the gospel, because one of the reasons why the testimony of early Christians about the resurrection of Jesus, the reason why it was so powerful is because if you said that you saw Jesus rise from the dead, and then you vowed to be a follower of Jesus, what they would often do is they would kill you. You would die a miserable death, or at the very least, I think even the incentives, even now, with respect to the OGTV affirmation, the incentives and disincentives are child's play when it comes to that, compared to what it would cost you if you claim to be a Christian in the time of the early church. Many people, most of the apostles died horrific deaths. Early Christians in Rome were fed to lions. These are historical facts. But I want to focus on specifically the people who were around when Jesus was resurrected, and they claimed that they saw him in his resurrected state. Now, if you understand how these testimonies work, some people, actually, Babylon Bee has an interesting bit on this. They have a great bit on this, actually. It's a skit where they do they do kind of a parody of the how was the guy's name? I'm not a rapper. What's his name? I can't remember his name. but they do the silly freestyles, right? And then they go, oh, they do that whole thing. You know what I'm talking about. I'll try to maybe insert it if I can. But the point is that they do a great bit on this where they say, hey, I know what we do. When we do this? Why don't we go and tell people that Jesus died and rose from the dead, and then we'll all die horrible deaths. Oh, and then they go crazy, right? The whole thing, the irony of it, the silliness of it is that nobody would do that, right? And it's kind of poking fun at people who claim that early Christians were making up the resurrection story, that they were lying about it, that they knew that it wasn't true, but that they were saying it anyway. Well, here's the thing. When somebody knows something isn't true, they only say it when they benefit from telling a lie, right? So you can have someone, if you benefit from saying something, that could be an incentive, right? But if you don't benefit from saying something, there's only one reason why you would still say it, right? If you attest it to something being true to your own detriment, the only reason why you would do that is if you truly believe that it's right. You believe that it's true. And only under those circumstances can you know for certain that a person is not saying something that they don't believe. Now, I will say that is slightly different from saying that person is saying something that is true, because saying something that is true and saying something that you believe are not necessarily the same thing. But what is most important is that nobody would say something that they knew to be false if they didn't benefit from it. But nobody would say something that they believe to be true when it would hurt them, if in fact they didn't believe it to be true. If I said that right, I don't know. I have to play it back. But you get the point. So how does this cross over with the OGTV community? Well, they created a culture of affirmation, and during Pride Month, there's plenty of that. But now, all the incentives going one direction kind of sheds a kind of a shady light on the whole endeavor, you see, because now, how can the people in the OGTV community, how can they really, really, really be sure that people are affirming. You see, the affirmation is supposed to be the wind in their sails. It's supposed to be the gas in their tank. It's supposed to be the thing that they run on. It's the thing that they've been saying for years and years and years. Hey, the reason why I'm so depressed and the reason why I'm so unhappy and the reason why I can't get along in society is because you do not affirm, 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 affirm. Okay, so now you got all the affirmation you could ever want. But the thing is it authentic? Is it authentic? Why? Because when people are incentivized for saying a certain thing, then how do you know they're not saying it for the incentives? You know, what we call this is virtue signaling, right? It's like when you say something and you go, "Oh, I just want to show everybody how down with it I am," or whatever, however you want to say that. I want to show everybody how much of a good person I am, how much better I am than the next guy or those deplorables over there who don't believe the right things. So I'm just going to say the thing that everyone thinks that I should say so that I can get all this adulation from people. Even Jesus talked about this, He talked about, the person saying the long prayers on the street corner, they like to do this so they can be seen by men. And he says, surely they have their reward. We understand how this works. So the great irony of this whole system that the OGTV community has set up is this. The only people they can be sure are saying to them what they actually believe are the people who do not affirm. That's the irony. You see, people who do not affirm OGTV lifestyles, LGBTQ lifestyles, I'll just say it. I mean, if YouTube wants to take my little channel down, it's like, whatever, man. This is what it is. This is the price of doing business, apparently. But the only people who we can be certain are telling the truth are the people who do not affirm, because there is literally nothing to gain and almost everything to lose by saying that in public in the broader society. Because right now you could lose your job, you could lose your YouTube channel, as many have seen. We see right now that the Daily Wire and other conservative outlets are being demonetized. They're being hit with all of these hard strikes. They're very close to being literally kicked off the platform of YouTube altogether. And YouTube is the only game in town for right now. I know Rumble is on the come up, but it's not quite there yet, right? So here's the thing that I ask you. For those of you in the LGBTQ community who seek affirmation, that's the wind in your sails, right? I can tell you right now, half the people, especially when it comes to the trans issue, most people don't actually believe what they're telling you. Most people are affirming and saying what they need to say, not because they think what you're doing is right, but because they don't want to lose their job. They don't want to lose their livelihood. They don't want to lose their social status. And because the incentives are so strong in one direction and so anti the other direction, most people who affirm are just lying. Everybody knows a guy can't be a girl. Everybody knows men shouldn't participate in women's sports. But the people who don't say anything, they are simply doing that because they're afraid. So that affirmation you craved and you wanted so much is a scam. It's not even real. I think most people really understand what the truth is, and they're just afraid to say it. And I think that even many in the LGBTQ community, even they understand this. I've always said this: lies are fragile, but the truth is resilient. And this is why I think many have sought for 100% compliance with affirmation, because the single dissenting voice can bring down the whole house of cards. They can't, it's not enough that most people are celebrating it. It's not enough that people put all these corporate dollars around it. And you're about to see, by the way, that's even backfiring, because, that one guy that endorsed Bud Light, I don't want to say his name. He's showing very, very clearly, and that situation has shown very clearly that people are now getting sick of it. And what you're going to see is many of these companies who were supposed to be affirming and woke and they were progressive and all of this stuff, when it starts costing them money, then you'll see what their true colors are. You see, they did that because they thought it was good for business. And when it's not good for business anymore, then you're going to see whether they really, really affirm you. And I think for many of these companies, they're going to choose not to alienate their customers. Your affirmation and the affirmation of your idea and view of yourself isn't worth billions of dollars. You're going to find that out very soon. So anyway, I thought I would just offer that little anecdote because I do find it ironic that now the only people who you can know for certain are telling the truth or saying what they actually believe are those who are willing to suffer for their opinions. And right now, the only people who are doing that are the people who do not affirm. I'm interested to hear your thoughts, friends. As always, if you like this content, go ahead and like, subscribe, share. I will have more content coming soon, so stay tuned. Until next time, my friends, God bless you.